Hello, everyone, and welcome to this educational presentation where today I want to talk to you about the last chance to learn how to trade the Primo Oscillator. This is our very new feature we have that I developed with Pro Trader Strategies. And it really is the last chance because we are actually presenting the live class 2 days from now on this Friday, or you want to call it 3 days, I guess you could say. But a lot of students have said, well, why are you focusing on a particular indicator or a tool that's been around for a while? I thought that you mainly talk about strategies or methods in which to trade. Well, the reason why we focus on an oscillator and why I developed it with Pro Trader Strategies is because I have a problem with most oscillators. For example, let's look at this older chart here in the spiders, okay? This is a standard stochastic oscillator that's plotted right here. The oscillator below the chart is the blue line, right? And then you have these two thresholds. Here's the upper threshold and the lower threshold. Now, with a stochastic oscillator, usually when the blue line goes above and closes above that upper threshold, it's basically telling you that the market you're looking at is overbought. So this means that just from the very title alone, it's bought too much, that you should either sell or exit when it's in this area, okay? All this time here. So looking at the chart now, how well would that have worked if you sold the stock or exited your long position? Not very well, right? Let's say you were long the spiders and you sold right when it went into the so-called overbought and exited the position. Well, you would have looked and gotten very angry saying, gosh, I left so much money on the table then. And if we continue to follow the oscillator, we see that it goes back into the neutral zone area and then goes below the lower threshold. This is what's called an oversold area. This means that it's sold off too much and that actually it's been overextended and that you should buy, okay? So looking at the chart now, how well would that have worked if you had bought once it went in the so-called oversold area? So this is what I mean when I'm talking about I have a problem with most oscillators. Most oscillators are like this. They're usually a day late and a dollar short. They're lagging indicators, and they really will work every once in a while, but most of the time you have situations like this. This is why I developed the Primo Oscillator with Pro Trader Strategies. Let's look at what the Primo Oscillator did with the same exact chart, okay? Now, we see here that based on this bar right here, it was telling us that a trend change, or most likely a price direction change, was happening to the upside. And as you can see, spiders went up 45 points. And then right here, not at the top, but 2 bars before the top, it was telling us of a price direction change, most likely to the downside, and the spiders lost 40 points. And if you happen to miss that one, well, guess what? It even pinpointed another area for a trend change to the downside right here. So this is why we focused on this. We have a brand new oscillator that's based on entirely different requirements that most oscillators are based off of, okay? And that's why we're introducing the Primo Oscillator. In 3 days from now, on Friday, will be our introductory class, a live class held with students. You can ask me questions and we'll see a lot of current charts and you'll know exactly how to apply the oscillator to your own trading. So welcome once again. My name is Steven Primo, president and founder of Specialist Trading. Thanks for joining us today. I've been trading now for 46 years. I started my career on the floor of the Pacific Stock Exchange. I was on the floor for 16 years, and 9 of those years I was a specialist. That's where we get the name Specialist Trading. A specialist isn't anyone that's more special than anyone else, just means that you specialized in making a market. So if anyone wanted to buy a particular stock, such as the ones I traded, like IBM, Waste Management, US Air, you had to come up to my post where I would make a market and either buy or sell the stock from you. So I did that during the crash of 1987 and the bull market that followed. And then I left the floor ultimately in the mid-90s to manage money and to trade my own account, as well as to teach, which I just started roughly about 15 years ago. So I've seen just about every oscillator you can think of. I know how oscillators work. I've traded with them, and I really have had a problem going over my last 46 years of trading. That's why I developed this brand new feature. And I really think it's really going to help your trading take it to the next level. I've been trading with it. We've been experimenting and trading with it for the past good year almost. And even as recent as today, I was trading it and had a nice profit intraday trading on the E-mini future. So it really is a great tool. It can really help you. And I'm going to share with you exactly how to apply it to your own trading in the course. Now, before we begin today's educational presentation, I just ask that you take a moment to view our disclaimer. I'm going to show you a lot of performance results using the oscillator today in today's educational class, but please remember that we can in no way guarantee that any of the results I'm about to share with you will be repeated in the future. Also, please remember that all examples are strictly for educational purposes only. Now, if you haven't done so already, please feel free to follow us on Twitter. I see a lot of new names today in today's class. I post different information on a daily basis, little bits of financial wisdom, as well as current displays of strategy signals and trades that have taken place. So there's lots of great free information on a daily basis. Please feel free to follow us on Twitter. Now, as I stated in the opening statements, we are first and foremost an educational company. That's our only goal, simply to educate you. I know a lot of websites you go to, a lot of webinars you may have attended, they tell you what they think the market's going to do, or what they think a perfect stock is going to be, or what they think the time frame you should be trading is. Well, we don't do that. See, as an educator, your goal should be simply to teach you how to trade. And that's what my goal is. I don't, in any way ever give out my opinion as to what I think the market's going to do, because that's for you to decide. What we do is teach you all of the tips and techniques I've accumulated in 46 years so that you can ultimately make your own trading decisions. And the reason why we do that and focus on that is because it's our opinion that the only traders that will last in terms of their trading career are the ones that make their own trading decisions. Most of the traders that have been around 10, 20, 30 years don't read daily blogs. They don't, look at the news, or they don't look at a chat room or go to a chat room. They make their trading decisions. They make their choices during the day. And so this is what we're trying to instill in all of our students around the world. Okay. Now, let me share with you what's going to be included in our course curriculum, which will be starting, as I stated, in just about 3 days. It's going to be broken up into 2 sections. Section number 1 will discuss the overview and the format of the oscillator. So I'm going to go into detail as to what the oscillator is based upon and what the requirements are for it to generate its signals. And then I'm going to show you via live charts how to view the oscillator on the PTS Primo charting platform with the different formats available, with the different displays. And I'll also discuss and show you what my setup is and how I like to display the oscillator. And then in section 2, we'll get into 3 trading techniques and setups. These are what I've been researching over the past year, in my opinion, the trading setups that have the highest probability for success. The way you can identify them and the way you can spot them is what we will be covering in section 2. And on top of that, I will also show you what my favorite of these 3 techniques is, and the one in which I usually trade with, okay? So that's going to be covered in the curriculum. The class will be this Friday, and we'll go over these 2 sections. Okay, with that out of the way, let's begin today's educational class. We're going into a little bit more detail. So if you're asking, well, what is the new Primo oscillator based on? Let's first define what the standard oscillator definition is, okay? Most standard oscillators, they measure the amount that a security's price has changed over a given period of time. So we're basically looking to see what the closing price is, and then we're measuring that amount over a given period of time. Here's where the Primo oscillator is different from that. The oscillator measures the amount that a security's price pattern has changed over a given period of time. So what we're doing is we're looking for a specific price pattern in the security, and then we're measuring that to see how much it has changed over a given period of time. So it's entirely different than most oscillators. The format, the requirements are different because we are looking for a pattern, a proprietary pattern that occurs over and over again. It's not in any of our strategies or techniques or methods. This is a different pattern altogether that we're looking for. And then we're measuring that to tell us the fluctuations and the plotting of the oscillator. So the advantages to using the Primo oscillator are this: it shines a light on these high probability short-term price turning points, because that's what we're looking for. We're looking for to see when the market's going to change direction, or at least shift in direction for a bar or two. Now, it provides you with numerous trading techniques that are based on these oscillator fluctuations. This is what we're going to be teaching you in the course. And then lastly, and most importantly, as I said in the beginning, our whole goal is to have you make your own trading decisions. Remember, as I just said, the traders who have been trading the longest don't go to chat rooms or trading rooms. They don't look at blogs. They don't concern themselves with the news. They have a simple plan in place and they make their own trading decisions. Well, this is one of the added advantages of the Primo oscillator. It's just one more piece of the puzzle that enables you to make your own trading decision. And in my opinion, this is the most important use of the oscillator. So let me ask a question. As we look here at some displays, which oscillator would you rather apply to your trading? So now let's look at that old chart again. We looked at the spiders. Remember the so-called overbought area, the so-called oversold area using the stochastic oscillator. How well would it have helped us, right? We would have basically lost a lot of money or left a lot of money on the table. Let's see when we apply the Primo oscillator, how it could have changed things. Let's compare that now to the Primo oscillator. All right, here's the Primo oscillator on the bottom displayed with our lines, okay? And we have our upper threshold and our lower threshold. Okay, what we're doing here is looking for price to penetrate those thresholds. And right here at the very beginning, it penetrated the lower threshold, okay? So this is telling us that most likely there's going to be a price direction change, in this case, most likely to the upside. Now, it doesn't predict how high and how long that direction change will take place. It just tells you that this is the place, this is a highly opportune area to enter if you want to be long or be enabled to the long side. And so as we see that was this corresponding bar right here, okay? And then look what happened after that. The market took off. Now, as we follow the oscillator right here, it's not staying in some so-called overbought, oversold area. It's simply within the neutral zone until this area right here. Now it penetrated the upper threshold, okay? So what's this telling us? Well, if we look at the corresponding bar right here, it gave us advance warning that now most likely we're running out of steam, and it's at this point that we should look for a price direction change, in this case to the downside. And as we can see, it went straight down after that. Now, it took a couple of bars to get there, but remember, this is not a type of predictive tool that picks the exact top or the exact bottom. It's simply signaling a price direction change that is coming very soon. And as you can see, 2 bars later, the market changed direction all entirely. Now, the stochastic oscillator would have had you believe that, well, at this point, we are oversold and it's time to buy it here, right? But if you look at the Primo oscillator, once again, it never went below the lower threshold. Once again, it went above the upper threshold because it's based on completely different parameters and gave you a second chance right here with the corresponding bar to sell, telling you that most likely there's going to be a direction change to the downside again. So it's entirely different from using most standard oscillators. All right, so let's look at some more Primo oscillator examples. I'm just going to be sharing with you this one technique. As I said, there are 3 different techniques. I'm going to be sharing with you just one of them because I don't want to give away everything that's included in the course. Okay, let's look at another standard stochastic oscillator example right here, okay? So we are looking at an older chart of CRWD. Now, as we look at this, the oscillator is right here. It's hard to tell, but right at this point, it just barely closed below the lower so-called oversold threshold. So at this point is where you want to buy. And for 3 days or 2 or 3 days, you had a nice little gain right there, but you had to been quick in exiting because look what happened. The market fell out of bed. So for 2 days, you looked okay. All right. And then look what happened here. It went into the so-called oversold area again. So is it time to buy? Right here, once again, if you had done that for the next 3 days, you're going even lower. Let's look at the same chart with the Primo oscillator, okay? As we see, the oscillator right here went above the upper threshold, which was now signaling most likely a price direction change to the downside. And look what happened. It went straight down after that. So you're never buying close to the top and buying close to the bottom either, okay? Let's look at another very popular oscillator. That's the MACD. Okay, it's a little bit different than the stochastics. Don't ask me to go into the inner workings and calculations of it, but the way it works in terms of application is you have the MACD oscillator, which is this kind of reddish pink line here, and then you have the blue line, which is the signal line. Okay, so when the MACD goes above, as it did right here, that's signaling a buy situation. Okay, so how well did this work if we would have bought based off this bar where it went above? Not very well, right? We bought very close to the high of that little up move. And for the next 3-4 days, we've got a big loss on our hands. But then look what happened. The oscillator, the MACD, went below the signal line. So that's now signaling a sell. So we would have exited our long position right here for a loss and said, well, let's go short now. Maybe we'll make it back. For the next week, you're feeling very good about yourself because it is going lower. But following the MACD, what happened once again? It crossed back up above the signal line, telling you now it's time to buy. So if you would have sold right here, you would have covered and bought higher. So now you have your second loss on your hands here. And then ultimately, if you had enough money left, you could have bought based off this signal right here, and you would have finally had a nice winning trade. But would you have made any money? Because you had two losses prior to that, you most likely would have just broken even, which is not a great way to trade. Okay, it's okay, but it's not great. You want to at least have and show something for your hard-earned trading. Let's see how the Primo oscillator would have differed. Okay, it's in the neutral zone, but at this point, it goes below the lower threshold, telling you that a price direction change is most likely going to happen to the upside. Now, if we look at the corresponding bar, we see that it's right here. Had you purchased there, well, look at all the room you had to make to the upside. You never had to worry about two losses before making that decision to buy. You just simply bought based off the one signal. Here's an example in the QQQs. Okay, you could use this as a market directional tool. This instance in the NASDAQ, because the QQQs represent the NASDAQ 100. So once again, looking at the MACD, here's the MACD. We crossed above the signal line right here. So this is generating a buy setup right here. How well would you have done buying or using this as a market directional tool to the upside? As you see, it went much lower after that. As we continue to follow it, we see that eventually it went below the signal line, telling us to go short or to exit our long position. So you would have exited right here. And for, as we said earlier, for 2 or 3 days, you're feeling pretty good about yourself until we have a reversal and you're still short. And here you feel a little bit better about yourself, like maybe it's coming down, so you have a small profit, but then look what happened the next day. And on top of that, the oscillator turned back up. Now the MACD went up above the signal line. So now it's time to buy. You sold roughly right here, and now you're buying higher. And you have a nice profit if you held on for the last trade. But once again, you had to go through 2 losing trades in order to get through a winning trade. Most likely you would have just broken even once again. How would the Primo oscillator have differentiated this exact same scenario? Well, here we have the oscillator, and at this point we went below the lower threshold, signaling a move to the upside, a direction move to the upside right here. Now, you would have had to been very quick once again, but with our money management, what we teach you in the class, most likely you would have broken even at the very worst. You would have moved your stop to unchanged had you held on to this position. And you could have exited with a break-even trade, but at this point, you get another chance to buy right here with the corresponding bar, and you could have taken advantage of this nice little short-term up move. So with the MACD, you had 2 losses and then 1 winner, probably just breaking even. With this, the Primo oscillator, you have most likely a break-even trade and then a winning trade. So a lot better odds in your favor. Here's an example on a weekly chart of Netflix. Now, this is where oscillators, it's been my personal pet peeve with them, how they really can really harm a trader if you really rely on them. Because at this point, you see, the oscillator went into the so-called oversold area. All right, so conventional wisdom tells us now we've got to buy it. Well, how well would you have done if you bought all this way down? Okay, let's say you exited with a loss and you say, okay, now the oscillator is going back up, but then it went back down again in the oversold area. So you got to get back in and sell again, or I should say buy again. And look at it, it sells off once more. So you've got 2 losses on your hands, just based off the stochastic oscillator. So at this point, it finally goes back into the neutral area and then back up into the overbought area. So now it's time to sell. So how well would that have worked once again? Not very well, okay, because it continued to go higher. It never really sold off that much. Let's see the exact same chart, but this time by applying the Primo oscillator. We didn't have any action at all when the market was falling out of bed. It kept us out of this negative scene here. But at this point, what happened? It went below the lower threshold on a weekly basis, telling us right here and right here that these are 2 opportune places to buy, and you could have potentially captured over 100 points. Another weekly chart, this time in SAM, the Boston Beer Company, that makes Samuel Adams. Okay, at this point, here's where I want to show you how the Primo oscillator is consistent, meaning that consistency is an awareness that not every trade will be a winner. And that's okay, because a consistent method is able to recoup the losses. Now, for example, here, Let's see how the stochastic oscillator, if it's a consistent method or not. At this point, it went into the so-called overbought area, okay? So if you had used that and used it to sell, well, most likely you would have lost money because it went up about another 4 weeks until ultimately it did fall out of bed. But at that time, if you had been holding on for 4 weeks, you most likely would have lost a lot of money and probably been out of the trade. Ultimately, the stochastic went lower into the so-called oversold area, and look what happened. Had you tried to buy it anywhere on the way down here, I don't think you would have had any money left at all, okay? It's a tremendous loss. All right, so how did this differentiate from the Primo oscillator? Well, we apply the Primo oscillator, and we see at this point, just about almost the same place as the stochastic gave a overbought area. Had you used this, you would have said, well, at this point, it's at the upper threshold telling us a price direction change at this point to the downside. So if we look at the corresponding bar, we would have sold just off face value right here, and it would have been a loss, okay? Here's the good news. I will teach you a technique in the class, whereas once a signal is generated, you wouldn't have to. It's your choice. Once again, you're making your own decisions. But if you wanted to use this is a more conservative way of entering, you would not have entered until this bar right here. So you would have sat back and waited the entire time, entered right here, and then been able to take advantage of this 785-point down move, okay? So there are many more opportunities and ways to trade with the Primo oscillator as opposed to standard stochastics. Now, the previous examples revealed just one of the multiple ways in which to apply the Primo oscillator to your trading. This is just one of the ways I'll be going into detail and showing you all the different facets of this technique in the course, which is this Friday. Now, let's look at this chart here. There's an older chart in Netflix, because we're also going to go into section 1 into the displays and how to actually apply it. For example, you can use the Primo oscillator using the standard line approach, as you see in many oscillators, or you can apply it with histograms, okay? This is another way in which to use it. Some of the applications, you can also apply both together, the line with the oscillator. You can apply different lines, overbought, oversold, different thresholds if you like, through your learning or through what I'm going to be teaching you. Now, if you just apply the line, you can also apply the crossbars or any type of bars you'd like. We also give you the option to apply indicators. You can apply a moving average to the oscillator. And I'll show you one of the techniques that uses a moving average for signals with the oscillator. Now you can increase the size of the window to mainly focus on the oscillator, or, which is something I've tried, which is, I'll go into detail in the class because I can't really talk about it much here, but sometimes you don't even need to look at the underlying chart. All you need to do is look at the oscillator, and you can have the entire screen just be the oscillator if you like. Okay, let's review what we went over and show you exactly what you'll be learning. The advantages of trading with the Primo oscillator are many. It identifies high probability short-term price turning points. I know a lot of oscillators are designed to do that, but through the examples I just shared with you, they're not very consistent. Okay, they will continue to tell you to buy something and buy something because it's gone down too much. And in the meantime, you're going to lose a lot of money holding on to these positions. Trust me, I know this from first-hand experience when I used to first use oscillators many, many years ago, 4 decades ago. Okay, the Primo oscillator is not like that. Oftentimes, it will share the same exact place to either buy or sell where a price direction change is going to happen, but we have different ways of entering, and I'll show you that in the class. It can be applied to fine-tune your entries or exits. Once again, as we said, if you are trading with a current strategy, let's say, and let's say you say, well, Steve, I like my strategy. Well, this is a great way to fine-tune your entry. Maybe you want to go long and the market keeps going lower. You can use the Primo oscillator to tell you when that price direction change is going to happen to the upside. That way you can enter it at a very opportune time. Now, it provides you with multiple trade opportunities based on the oscillator fluctuations. There are 3 main ones that we've researched and developed that we're going to be teaching you in the class. There are also 2 extra bonuses, which I'll talk about in just a few minutes. It increases your consistency for both intermediate traders and investors. Although you can trade it intraday, you can also trade it if you're an intermediate trader for swing trading, as well as investing for long-term trading, okay? And then lastly, and most importantly, as we stated before, it enables you to make your own trading decisions. This is something that you absolutely need to be a successful trader, in our opinion. So in order to be a successful trader, you need to learn and you need to trust and have the ability to make your own trading decisions. And this is what the oscillator's main function is. Now, I want to share with you our last chance offer, because this is it. We won't be giving any webinars on the oscillator for some time now. We know we've been focusing on this because we want to get as many people in the class as possible, and then that's it. The class is over. So be one of the first to trade with the Primo oscillator. It's unlike any other oscillator you've ever traded with before. Why? Because its parameters are entirely different. It identifies these high probability price turning points, and it's based on patterns rather than closing and price of a security, okay? Provides you with numerous trading techniques. And on top of that, we're going to give you a live educational class. Now, we're also going to be throwing in 4 extra bonuses today. The first one is, as you saw, all the examples were on the PTS Primo charting platform, the platform I developed with Pro Trader Strategies. And we show you how simple it is to apply in the class, everything one click away. Well, if you sign up now, you're going to get a full year of the platform absolutely free. This comes with a host of other different tools and techniques and methods that you won't find anywhere else, because most of them I've taken from my years on the trading floor. You won't find them on any other popular trading platforms, okay? But you're going to get that as well as the oscillator for a full year absolutely free. But we're also going to be throwing in some more bonuses. Bonuses number 2 and number 3. Bonus number 2 is our steps course. This is an entirely different course that I gave an entirely different class on years ago, because it's a full-fledged course in and of itself. It stands for short-term entry points. So what can happen is that many traders we've looked at and researched the oscillator, and we've thought, well, you know, someone may not know exactly how or when to enter. Steps is an entry tool. It automatically displays on our platform these high probability points to enter. So you'll know exactly where to enter once a setup has been generated by the oscillator. Now, once you're in a setup, what happens if it really goes in your direction and you're saying to yourself, well, how do I protect my profit? This brings us to bonus number 3, our PTS Dynamic Stop add-on course. This is a tremendous, tremendous advantage to have, because it basically protects and automatically displays these auto-generated stop levels. So if you're in a great trade, you'll know exactly where to place your stop. Let me show you an example here. This is an older chart in Apple, okay? Now, as we're looking at this particular trading technique, we see that the oscillator went below the lower threshold right here, signaling that there's going to be a price direction change to the upside, all right? And the bar is right here, okay? And look what happened. It went up. But many times you may say to yourself, well, you know, this is what happens to a lot of traders. They say, well, I like to trade off my strategy, and my strategy didn't generate a buy signal, or, you know, I'm afraid to pull the trigger. It closed near the low, and that guy in the chat room said the market's falling out of bed and I shouldn't do anything. Well, you can trust the high probability entry points through steps, okay? All you have to do on our platform is click on steps, and they will automatically appear. So you could use any one of these points to enter while the signal is still in play. Now, let's say you had chosen this bar to enter. This is a high probability entry point, telling you that most likely it's going to go higher, but you want to protect yourself. Well, then this is where the dynamic stop level comes in, okay? Simply on the platform, click on PTS Dynamic Stops, and they automatically appear on the platform. So once you would have entered, let's say here, this was the last stop, you would have placed it right here. You are still holding on with this stop until this one is generated, and then the next day it goes up even higher. And you continue to generate these entries and stop placements, and you're locking in profits. These are going to be included as extra bonuses within the Primo Oscillator course. But we're not stopping there. We're throwing in bonus number 4. And this is something brand new. This is our last chance offer. If you purchase the Primo Oscillator within the next 3 days, that's before our class this Friday, you'll be eligible to receive any lifetime upgrades made to the indicator. We are currently working on a scanning process for the oscillator. That way we can scan for the best stocks to trade with the oscillator. We're also working, I know personally I'm working on 1 or 2 different techniques that I've been experimenting and researching, so that we can give you more ways to trade with the Primo Oscillator. This is not something you will have to pay for. If you decide to become a a student of this course, let's say 2-3 months from now, these upgrades you will have to pay for eventually, okay? Because you're getting brand new things to apply. But if you decide to purchase a Primo oscillator within the next 3 days by Friday, well, guess what? Any changes, any upgrades to the oscillator in terms of scans, in terms of the ability to trade with more different techniques, they will all be free, included in your original price. This is a great, great bonus included just for people taking advantage of this in the next 3 days. Okay, so let's talk about this last chance offer, your last chance to learn how to trade with the Primo oscillator. Now, the early pre-launch special price is $49.95 outright. We're still discounting that. We're still not charging that. We're going to charge it at $44.95. You're going to save $500. But remember, this also includes 12 months of the platform. It also includes the course, the steps course, and the dynamic stop course. It also includes future upgrades. And one last thing I didn't mention here, you can take advantage of this with a payment plan. If you can't come up with $44.95, we understand that for a small deposit, you can still be up and running and in the live class this Friday. Okay. Now, if you're still not convinced, let me show you how the Primo oscillator could help your trading recently. These are things that happened within the last month. Let's look at a chart of the spiders here. Okay. We're looking at the same technique with the oscillator, this time with the histogram, and it went above the upper threshold. This is signaling that there most likely is going to be a price direction change to the downside. Now, this was on this bar right here. Had you sold right here, look what happened within the next 2 weeks. The spiders fell 35 points in 2 weeks, okay? Had you sold on the close of that day when the signal was generated. Now, that represents hundreds, if not thousands of points in the Dow Jones. Okay, you could have taken advantage anyway, could have bought puts, or you could have used this to help you make a decision on another signal you were looking at. This just happened on the 12th of December, just about a month ago. Now let's look at something that just happened last week, about 3 or 4 days ago. Here's a 15-minute chart of Tesla as applied with the new Primo oscillator. The same technique, once again, we went above the upper threshold, the oscillator closes above the higher threshold, right here at the close of this bar, and look what happened in 2 days. The stock fell 10 points, okay? So this is what we mean, how valuable this is. If you're an intraday trader, a swing trader, or an investor, this tool can really help you, and it's unlike any other oscillator you've used before. Trust me when I say the special oscillator class is really going to be this Friday. It's going to be unlike anything you've seen before, because the oscillator has entirely different parameters. So a year from today, you will have wished you became a member of this course. Don't waste any more time trying to become a consistent trader. Take advantage of this great offer. Remember, there are payment plans available, so you don't have to come up with the full price if you can't make it. Contact Pro Trader Strategies. I developed the platform with them as well as the oscillator. They can answer questions concerning the platform or the different courses as well. I would highly recommend giving them a call at area code 310-598-6677. And you can establish a payment plan with them, or you can get a quote. But remember, if you want to take advantage of all these bonuses I just talked about, you have to take charge in the next 3 days, okay? Now, that link you see at the very bottom is the link that will take you to the info page, okay? Now, you can't copy and paste that, but we've just posted a live link in the chat page. So if you go to the chat page there, just open up that little icon, you'll see that a link is posted there, right? And you can click that one on. Now, I've promised I would answer questions at the end of the presentation. So if you have any questions about the course and about the special class that's occurring on this Friday, please do not hesitate to ask. Someone's asking, how long will the class be? This class usually, when we go over an indicator instead of an actual strategy, it's not as long as a strategy course, but I would say probably about 2 hours, okay? So on Friday, 10 o'clock PST, Pacific Standard Time, we are going to be holding the class, and it'll probably be from 10 o'clock Pacific time to noon, okay? So that way, at the end of it, you'll have at least an hour left in the markets to try and experiment with it. And so we want to leave you time to work with it and to see how it's happening in real time, okay? So I would say 2 hours, okay? What if we're not able to make the class? Well, don't worry, everything is being recorded, just as this presentation is being recorded. But you'll be able to watch this presentation at a later date. You can always watch it. But remember, that offer is only going till this Friday. So I wouldn't say wait on this recording. And if you can't make, we have a lot of students that live in different time zones. We have students that live out of the country. So they can't make this particular time zone. That's okay. Everyone will get a recording where they can study and research it. And then you will be able to ask me questions live during the class, okay? And we'll look at some more current charts. But we're really going to go in detail on how to apply these different techniques, because that's really at the core of the oscillator, okay? Yeah, someone is saying, so the same standards for educational correspondence? Yes. Educational correspondence means that you get my private personal email. So even though if you're in the course, in the class this Friday, you'll be able to ask me questions live. But if you can't make it, if it's you're only able to make the recording, you'll still get my personal email and you can contact me whenever you'd like, okay? Yes, that's also included as well. I didn't mention that. You get educational correspondence for a lifetime. Whenever you like, whenever you want, the weekend, you can always email me a question and I'll answer it as soon as possible, okay? Good questions. Any other questions? Will there be other live courses? No, this will be the only one. That's why we're throwing in all these bonuses, because after this, it's just going to be purchasing the oscillator, but you won't get that one-on-one, hands-on type of education. This is why people love our courses, because you can ask me questions and see charts and see live charts and really get an understanding of it, as opposed to watching a video. It's really worth its weight in gold, because it's a brand new tool. I'm having tremendous success with it. And I'm not just saying that. I trade with it every day. And I had a winning trade this morning when the market sold off. It generated one of these buy signals once again. And I made a nice 9 points on the E-mini this in just roughly about a half hour. So it's really a great tool. We're not promising anything, but we really think it can help you taking your trading to the next level, okay? All right, great. If there are no further questions, I want to thank you so much for attending. Remember, this offer and these bonuses are only going to last for the next 3 days. Take advantage of them if you're truly interested. If you want to take your trading to the next level, please take advantage of them as quickly as possible, because this will not last, and then you'll just have to view a recording, okay? As we take one last look at our disclaimer, I just want to thank you so much, and I really, really look forward to all of you in the class this Friday, okay? Remember, once again, it's a live class just like this. You'll be able to talk and ask me any question you like, and we'll look at a lot of charts so that you fully understand how to apply the Primo oscillator. Thank you so much for attending. I hope to see you in class. Bye-bye.